Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to follow up on a question that I raised in the House of Commons on February the 26th earlier this year. And I also had a follow-up question on March 19th, and it has to deal with the unfair duties and tariffs that have been imposed on catalyst pulp and paper, and indeed some pulp and paper operations across Canada. But this has affected my particular riding quite difficultly because of the fact that we have a large mill in the Crofton area, which is a great small community in my riding of Cowichan-Malahat-Langford. And, when I raised this issue on February 26th, I noted that the fact that earlier in the year, on January 8th, 2018, the Department of Commerce in the United States had imposed a 6.09% countervailing duty deposit on exports of uncoated groundwood paper products. And this was followed up in March by a 22.16% anti-dumping duty deposit on the company's exports of the same product. Madam Speaker, when you add both of those up, that is simply something that a company in the state of Catalyst, it cannot survive with those duties, and nor could any company. And indeed, it's putting many American consumers at risk because the cost of newsprint has now skyrocketed because the U.S. cannot meet its own demand. Now, if these duties remain, the Crofton mill stands to lose hundreds of good-paying union jobs and the benefits of the resource industry that forms the bedrock of regional economies. What Catalyst means to my local community of Crofton, I'll just outline a few points, Madam Speaker. Catalyst Corporation is BC Hydro's largest consumer. They are the biggest customer. And if that company were to fold or have any of its operations shut down, that would be a huge loss to provincial revenues in BC Hydro. Catalyst is also a big consumer of waste fiber from local sawmills. In fact, many sawmills depend on Catalyst for a source of revenue, but also as a place where their waste, in quotes, can be turned into a value-added product. And also, I should say that the Catalyst mill in Crofton employs about 570 people, and it pays millions of dollars in municipal taxes to the District of North Cowichan. Madam Speaker, this is a mill that produces about 350,000 tons of newsprint each year, and it's quite incredible what it does. It's some of the main concerns that have been raised both by the company but also by Premier John Horgan of British Columbia concerns the softwood lumber action plan. And in fact, Premier Horgan wrote to the Prime Minister last month when he noted that there's confusion on how to access the program, and there's concern that the nature of the programs do not offer support in time to shield against the impact of tariffs. And in fact, when I was speaking directly with the leadership of Catalyst, they also told me that the current softwood lumber agreement aid package is of no value to them. That's a quote directly from them, Madam Speaker. So I go back to the question that I raised in February and again in March. What specifically is this government doing with these onerous and unfair tariffs? I would like to have specifics that I can take back to not only the company but also to the many constituents who depend on this mill, because we really want to know that Canada is standing up for this mill and that it's actually doing everything that it can, and I hope the Parliamentary Secretary can spell that out for me tonight. Thank you.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, the Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Department of Commerce's decision on supercalendered paper did not comply with NAFTA's panel's decision. We have therefore requested that a NAFTA panel review the determination by the Department of Commerce, and we will be challenging this decision on the World Trade Organization rules. We will always defend our industry and its workers against protectionist trade practices. Madam Speaker, I would like to thank the member from Cowichan-Malahat-Langford for raising this issue. Our government was deeply disappointed by the U.S. Department of Commerce decision to impose preliminary anti-dumping and countervailing duties on imports of Canadian uncoated groundwood paper. British Columbia's forest products industry is vital to the province and to the communities and the workers that it supports. It is important that they have a federal government that is willing to stand up and fight for them. And I would like to reassure my colleague and reassure those workers that our government is doing exactly that. We have repeatedly raised with the United States how unjustified and unfair these punitive duties are. Not only that, but they will have a direct and negative impact on U.S. newspapers, especially those in small towns and cities, and result in job losses in the American printing sector. These duties are not in the interest of Canadians nor of Americans. These investigations as an unwarranted use of the U.S. trade remedy system by a single company, North Pacific Paper, that operates one mill in Washington State. It is not right that one company should cause economic hardship to the whole forest products industry on both sides of the border. We are making this point directly with U.S. interlocutors. We are particularly aware of the fact that Catalyst, the source of 1,200 jobs in small communities such as Crofton, Powell River, and Port Alberni, is facing high preliminary rates. Our government is working closely with the Canadian companies targeted by these investigations, including Catalyst. We are arguing our points directly with the U.S. Department of Commerce and with the U.S. International Commission as part of the ongoing process. Canada's forest industry sustains good middle-class jobs and provides economic opportunities for rural and Indigenous communities across the country. As such, our government is very much committed to helping our forest industry enhance existing trade relationships and diversify trade with new international markets. We are also working with the affected provinces very much, including British Columbia and Premier Horgan, to discuss options to assist exporters facing preliminary duties. Madam Speaker, we will continue working to advance the interests of the Canadian forest industry to protect those good middle-class jobs in so many communities across the country.
The honourable member for Cowichan-Malahat-Langford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I appreciate the Parliamentary Secretary's words, but I go back to the points that I raised in my speech. The fact that Premier Horgan's letter to the Prime Minister mentioned that there's confusion on how to access the softwood lumber action plan. There's concern that the nature of the programs do not offer support in time to shield against the impact of tariffs. And I also have correspondence saying that the current structure is of no help to Catalyst. So again, Madam Speaker, through you to the Parliamentary Secretary, how is his government going to address these specific concerns so that Catalyst can access these programs while we wait for a final determination in August of this year?
The honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We are working very actively with the relevant provinces and very much with British Columbia, with Minister Donaldson and Premier Horgan on a file that is very important for all British Columbians, and both of us are actually members of Parliament from British Columbia. The U.S. International Trade Commission will make its final injury determination at the end of the summer, and we are forcefully defending Canada's interests at the ITC. The only right course of action for the U.S. is for the U.S. ITC to make a negative finding and for the U.S. Department of Commerce to revise its final determinations and remove fully and entirely these duties. I can assure the member that our government will continue to actively participate in the U.S. investigations, working with our forest industry, provinces and territories and communities across Canada, working very actively with provincial governments, including Premier Horgan, to defend this vital sector against unfair and unwarranted U.S. trade measures and practices.